Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, March the 8th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm host the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack Got Here. We do take the events of the week, try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that even though we are a news podcast, we do try to watch our language. Sometimes words, unfortunately, do fly. At the same time, there might be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, again, apologies for the late start. I know right now it's almost tomorrow, but if you're watching, thank you. If you're watching this replay, thank you. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So, remember that story a while back about a 6-year-old that brought a gun to school and shot his teacher in the chest? Yeah, we got an update on that.
Significant breaking news to get to you right now that is just coming into us exclusively here at NBC News. You remember that Virginia 6-year-old who shot his elementary school teacher? We are just now learning that he will not face charges. Again, this is from an interview that you will only see here on NBC News that our team is getting with the city's prosecutor just in the last really couple of minutes or so. The Newport News Commonwealth attorney who's overseeing this case says they had some questions about whether the 6-year-old could take the stand, but that he's still looking at possible criminal charges for adults. Now, to recap this story, and remember, it was headlines for, weeks here on this outlet and others. The 6-year-old shot his first grade teacher, Abigail Zwerner, in the hand and chest back in January at Richneck Elementary School. She spent 2 weeks in the hospital. A lawyer for the boy's family and the law firm representing Zwerner are declining comment as we speak. I want to bring in our NBC News legal analyst, Kristen Gibbons-Fedden. Okay, so Kristen.
Okay, so we're just going to stop there just because it's just basically going to go into what we already know. Let's be honest. Do we really expect a 6-year-old to get charged anything? I mean, because the one thing they didn't say, he's 6. There may be some mental issues there. But just like everything, it starts at the home. What are the parents? Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, shouldn't the parents be charged? Which they didn't say. They just said the 6-year-old will not be charged, which I'm like, why are we even looking at the 6-year-old for charges? If anything, he needs mental assessment and more than likely therapy at that point. He's 6. He barely understands past Blue's Clues and Bloopy or Bippy or whatever it is the thing that a lot of these kids actually do. But the one thing that I kept waiting for was the parents. You know, the parents that swore up and down were responsible gun owners, but yet their 6-year-old was able to get the gun out the house. The ones that sat there and said, well, there's nothing wrong with this child, but that child has had a history of problems at school. The ones that sat there and said, we feel sorry for the teacher that was shot, but yet still don't admit any wrongdoing. Where's the charges for those two? That's my question. Because, again, this is why I stand and say this goes into the responsible gun owners. Because as a firearms owner, you have to accept responsibility. Just because the ramifications of misuse of these weapons could be catastrophic, as we have seen time and time again. But I'm still waiting for the parents to be like, yeah, we need to accept responsibility. And they're not. But maybe, like I said before, this is just news that we just heard today. Maybe that the prosecutor will turn around and say, well, the most we can get for the parents is, child endangerment, child neglect, mishandling of firearms. You'll probably get some of those charges to the parents, but something needs to be done to set an example, because it almost feels like, again, we can't charge a 6-year-old. But those parents are not exactly absolved either. But again, we'll follow that story as it goes along. However, I don't know why it's breaking news, because if we did charge a 6-year-old with shooting a teacher, That's a slippery slope that nobody wants to go down. But speaking of slippery slopes, if you're on the conservative / Republican side and still believe in being deluded by Fox News, the CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference, is going on right now. And their media darling, former failure in chief, Donald Trump, has decided to give a speech to everybody he loves and to his haters.
Tonight, grabbing the harness of the MAGA base.
I'm thrilled to be back at CPAC.
The type of Republican activist he's relying on to catapult him back into the White House.
We're going to see this battle through to ultimate victory. We're going to make America great again.
CPAC, the annual conservative gathering, a wild scene of Republican enthusiasts and a crowd overwhelmingly supportive of Trump's 2024 bid.
Donald Trump.
I'm a MAGA guy through and through. There's nobody stopping him.
What are people coming to buy?
It's like 30-1 Trump over DeSantis.
An arena most other possible Republican contenders opted to avoid, except for Nikki Haley, the only major declared challenger to Trump.
If you're tired of losing, put your trust in a new generation.
Haley heckled by several on her way out. A straw poll taken at CPAC shows attendees favoring Trump over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by more than 40 points. DeSantis did not attend CPAC and is yet to announce a presidential run.
Why should he not be the presidential candidate for Republicans?
Well, he can be if he wants to be.
Why should folks not turn to him if he makes the case of being a new generation?
I think I've done something that nobody else has been able to do.
The conference here filled with Trump allies, including former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro made unsubstantiated claims of a stolen election in his home country, his supporters attacking the Capitol in January. He gave us his first on-camera interview with a U.S. TV outlet since losing his re-election bid.
Would you urge others around the world to resist the election denialism that we have seen play out in America and Brazil?
What we want is transparency, he said, and we want to respect the will of the people.
And Vaughn joins us now from CPAC. Vaughn.
So yeah, that's basically in a nutshell. Trump, let's be honest, we knew he was going to show up. It's Florida. It's like the last bastion for conservative idiots. And yes, we know in CPAC, they're all going to down Biden, down the Democrats. See, what CPAC is for a lot of people, CPAC is basically a safe bubble for conservatives, tinfoil hats, and conspiracy theorists, and those who always want to play Army but never enlisted. That's all it is. That's why Nikki Haley, again, that's not her government name, did go there to sit there and get support as she is running for president in 2024. And of course, Trump, who, if he somehow, and I say somehow, if he somehow manages to get to 2024 and not be in a jail cell by then by all intents and purposes, yes, he can run again. I mean, he only ran for one term, and for all those that may or may not remember, you can do 2 consecutive terms, and then you got to sit one out. But this is why I sit there and say Trump should not be taken lightly. I mean, even against dictator / Governor Ron DeSantis, who again hasn't said whether or not he's running in 2024. Now, I think right now we're going to get to a story about him very shortly. I think he likes his little kingdom called Florida right now, just because everything that he wants to do, he's able to do very easily. So not the same when you're the president, as you can see, but with Nikki Haley and Trump, and of course the merch, which I always wonder to myself, how in the world does Trump still manage to stay flush? Oh, he fleeces his flock. Come on, you saw the merch. Trump won. Let's go, Brandon. The election was a lie. The greatest hits, if you will. All printed on shirts, mugs, coffee cups for the world to buy. And yet Trump still has his website still up and running. But here's the thing that we should be worried about, that there's still enough people out there that really do believe their lives are better under Trump. They really do believe that. And it's not a small number. And that's what should be scary about that. It's not a small number of these individuals that believe it. All the more reason why we should be greatly concerned. And I do mean greatly concerned that, yes, if he somehow, above all else, makes it to 2024 unscathed, best believe he is going to run. However, on the bright side, because he has actual competition this time, makes for some interesting drama. I'll give you that much, or entertainment. But again, CPAC, nothing new from there except conservatives love being their own bubble / echo shell, repeating all the things they've said, and yet getting more people to buy into their bullshit. Just saying. But speaking of bullshit, you guys did know that on our previous podcast, we did talk about how House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Mr. If it doesn't work once, try 15 more times to get it right, decided that he was going to release footage from the January 6th insurrection to Tucker Carlson. Why, you may ask? Because it's Fox News. And just like Fox News, for them to take a story that has plenty of individuals, the white supremacist terrorist people, I call them terrorists because they impeded a government function on January 6th. Well, Tucker Carlson decides to whitewash it. Kind of the same way how Americans want to whitewash Black history.
Now they are getting special access to footage from January 6th. This is something that premiered last night on Tucker Carlson's show. And what appeared to be an attempt to rewrite what happened on January 6th is they revealed a portion of the 40,000 hours of footage that was given to Fox News and only to Fox News by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Tucker Carlson aired a portion of the video talking about what happened that day in what appeared to be an attempt to sanitize it.
The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful, they were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists, they were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol, they obviously revere the Capitol.
Of course, many of the people that you see in these videos here, as Poppy was just referencing, and as we've covered here at CNN, were actually charged with crimes for what happened on January 6th. 326 people were charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers or employees. The Justice Department says 140 officers were assaulted that day at the Capitol. Some left with head wounds, cracked ribs, smashed spinal discs, and burns. Joining us now to talk about this is CNN media analyst.
And that's what I call, ladies and gentlemen, whitewashing. Tucker Carlson, part of the three-headed hydra that is Fox News. And as we said, Fox News is not a real news station. He literally took the footage that was given to him by the Speaker of the House, and his job, we're just going to downplay it. Sure, there were some bad apples, but a lot of them were just mainly peaceful. That's what Fox News does. Fox News turns around and takes something that is so genuinely obvious, but they have to spin it. Why? Because we can't see white people as terrorists. You can see brown people as terrorists. You can see anybody else as terrorists, but you can't see white people as terrorists. No, they're just peaceful patriots who impeded a government function, went to a barricaded federal building. Even one of them got killed, and they try to make her into a freedom fighter. And it's just, you cannot make this up. This is what I sit there and say about those that watch Fox News. Aside from you really questioning your intelligence level, that this is what they try to do. It's the reason why Dominion, a company that was over the voting systems for the election, is in a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit with them right now. Because Fox News is basically state-run radio, state-run propaganda, if you will. That's the reason why nobody's asking, actually, I take that back, not nobody. A lot of people are asking, why did Speaker of the House McCarthy only give this footage to Tucker Carlson? Why not give it to NBC? Why not CBS? Why not ABC? Why not NPT? Why not NPR? Why not 100 different other news outlets? Why is Fox News the only spot he would pick? You want to know why? Because that's the safe spot. He won't give it to NBC, which, by the way, they've looked into with the footage that was released by the January 6th committee. That was the whole unreleased footage. What Tucker Carlson didn't do was show the footage of the interviews between the Capitol Police cops who got pretty much assaulted. Some even had to retire from the force just because of the beatings that they took from these people. He didn't show that. That's the reason why Fox News is not considered, and that's why people, whenever I hear them say, "Well, I watch Fox News," well, okay, then that tells me you like watching theater. That's all that tells me. Fox News is basically theater for white people. That's pretty much what it is. And that, well, what about NBC? What about CBS? They go for the left, but they actually have journalists. There's the big ass difference. There's not finding a journalist. Let me tell you something. Finding a journalist on Fox News is like trying to find a virgin at a Kardashian home. That's being honest. Finding a journalist at Fox News is like trying to find a virgin at a Kardashian home. You would be hard pressed to find it. Even more so, like I talked about, with these Republicans being back in office, you know the first thing they're gonna do? You would think they came in on the basis of, oh, we're gonna help the American people, we're gonna get jobs brought to America, you know, the classics, things they're gonna do. Well, funny thing about that, the first thing that Republicans are doing is looking into the job that the previous Congress has done. So just like I called it, this is what Republicans are going to do. That one of their own, one of the House Representatives wants to lead an investigation into the January 6th committee that looked into the issue on January 6th. You can't make this stuff up. That this is what they want to do. They, again, if you were watching the news, that a lot of Republicans believe that the January 6th commission may or may not have influenced the midterms, because they say, well, it painted these people in the wrong light. There's so much more stuff they didn't show. It all didn't happen the way it happened. So now the newly 118th Congress, that House of Representatives that is led by Republicans, whose first job, if you will, is to look into the previous Congress, specifically the January 6th committee, and see if they missed anything. I don't know about y'all, but the Republican win-loss record for looking into things is like 0, and I'm pretty sure close to 70 at this point. Because every investigation they've run has led nowhere. They try to say, oh, well, what about Pizzagate? Something that conspiracy theory from an Alex Jones show said. Nothing came up of it. Benghazi. Oh, we can go over that all day. Benghazi was ran into the ground so much that a movie was made after it, and it bombed just as much as the investigation did. Oh, well, what about Hunter Biden? Republicans could not stop talking about someone who had no influence in Congress whatsoever. But the laptop, why can't we see the laptop? Again, name one conservative investigation that actually bore fruit. You will be hard pressed to find it. Much like finding a virgin at a Kardashian house. Good freaking luck. But this is what we're stuck with. This is what we're stuck with for the next congressional season. We are stuck with this House, with these Republicans who will do nothing more than get paid for blowing smoke. And it is amazing to me that, you know, the funny part is, come after next year, once the presidential election is done, then 2 more years after that, we come up to another midterms. I would be amazed if people don't remember that. Remember all the things Republicans said they were going to do, and then check to see their achievements. It's going to be like their win-loss record, 0 and probably in the hundreds by then. Because this is the reason why I say conservatives, again, have no basis, especially in this one, where Sarah Huckabee Sanders, let me take this back. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders has literally signed a measure that rolls back child labor protections in the state of Arkansas. Now, for a lot of these people, for a lot of you guys who are wondering what that basically is that for the child labor laws in Arkansas, right? In order to actually work, if you're under the age of 18, which means if you're 16, 17, you have to get an employment certificate from the state. You also have to get a verified work schedule. You also have to get your parents' consent. Without those three things, you cannot work for anyone while under the age of 18 in Arkansas. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is removing that, saying that this places an arbitrary burden on parents. We just, for all those that weren't paying attention, for all those that may or may not know, we just literally just a week ago covered about underage children working at a meat processing plant upstate. How it has been flagged multiple times for having kids working the overnight shift. Some of them may or may not be legal, may not be legal or illegal, but still, kids working in a factory. And yet now in Arkansas, kids don't do that. And a lot of people are kids like, well, Will, I don't understand what's the problem. The problem is that a lot of these Republicans are setting up or removing laws and trying to stand and say, well, the parent, it's a burden on the parents. No, it's not, because any kid on the age of 18, you can't really work anywhere. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's why child labor laws are put into place to protect the children, especially from employers who will work these kids like grown adults, and these kids don't have protections. That's the reason why child labor laws were put into effect. At the same time, you did need parents' consent in order to work these jobs at 15 and 16, and you had to work reduced hours. 16-year-olds can't work 40-hour weeks. They do get reduced hours. That's in every state. However, now in Arkansas, that might be different. Why? Because the simple fact of the matter is just that now Sarah Huckabee Sanders may have actually screwed a lot of parents over, because it basically it doesn't lift the burden of responsibility off the parents. You're taking away the fact that the parents have to sit there and now watch some children try to actually work. At the same time, it also does alleviate the employers, and some of them, maybe that sneaky, will work these kids like grown adults. And yet, the woman who lied for Trump for several years can't seem to see the problem. Yeah, Republicans. But switching gears for a second, guys, Merrick Garland, the current AG, did look into Louisville Police Department and really said something that we already know post the murder of Breonna Taylor.
General Merrick Garland and the nearly 2-year investigation into the Louisville Police Department. Garland releasing a report that found that the city and its police force engaged in a pattern of unlawful and discriminatory policing, depriving people of their constitutional rights.
And Attorney General Garland was joined by officials from the Louisville Police Department when he spoke about those findings a little while ago.
The department has concluded that there is reasonable cause to believe that Louisville Metro and LMPD engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the First and Fourth Amendments of the Constitution. Some have videotaped themselves throwing drinks at pedestrians from their cars, insulted people with disabilities, and called Black people monkeys, animal, and boy. This conduct is unacceptable. It is heartbreaking.
That's the Attorney General. This investigation was originally prompted by national outrage after the death of Breonna Taylor, who was shot and killed by Louisville police officers while she was unarmed in her own apartment. The police officers had no justification, no reason at all to be there. They shot her dead. Let's bring in Kimberly Whaley, legal contributor and former U.S. attorney. So, Kim, this is a remarkable thing the Justice Department has done here. Why do you think the Department of Justice's involvement in these types of situations is critical, really?
It's critical, Terry, because there's not a lot of incentive for police forces within their community dealing with prosecutors to self-check in this regard, because everyone sort of knows each other. And if you know you're going to aggravate the prosecutor's going to aggravate a police witness, maybe they'll look the other way. And it looks like that's what's happened here. So many instances where there was not accountability for wrongdoing, not even reports, not very good, training, oversight, all of those things. And the Justice Department is the Justice Department. One of their obligations is to enforce the federal Constitution, enforce civil rights. And they're saying here that this is not just a few bad apples. This is a systematic problem where you're seeing violations of the Fourth Amendment, because when someone pulls you over, that's a search of yourself, your body, if you're arrested, that police officers are taking it too far. And then also in protests, the First Amendment, talking about how when people are talking back to police officers, they get bullied, and sometimes with violence, and sometimes with violence that can be lethal.
So, Kim, we have seen delay after delay for the trials for those 4 police officers charged in the death of Breonna Taylor. So is this DOJ investigation going to impact those at all?
Well, it looks like the most recent delay was because the judge, with one of those defendants, the judge was persuaded by defense counsel that there was just so much evidence that that defendant needed time to go through it. I think the judges in those cases are also thinking about constitutional rights, the constitutional due process rights of those defendants. So as far as the timing, I don't think it'll have an impact, but it's going to be hard for potential jurors not to pay attention to this statement from the Justice Department, 90 plus pages, some really damaging stories, very heartbreaking stories. And so I think prosecutors and defense lawyers are going to have to be careful once the juries are impaneled to make sure that they're not somehow persuaded one way or the other about the evidence in these cases based on what the Justice Department has said about the pattern and practice of discriminatory policing in Louisville.
So I have to ask this question. Yes. So now that, it's saying that the AG and the Department of Justice has looked into the Louisville Police Department and found patterns of unlawful and discriminatory policing. Okay, what happens now? What happens actually now? Because now it's just like, okay, we know off the bat that the police department was foul, that the police department was corrupted, that they may or may have not allowed detectives who murdered Breonna Taylor to go free. What now? And that's the thing where I don't get, because I feel like sometimes that's lip service. I feel like that's lip service whenever the Department of Justice looks into something, does a report, and says, you know what? There's not, it's foul here. It's foul. I smell it. We need to go with it. But nothing happens. There's not a, what are we doing here? Are we reprimanding? Are we getting rid of people? It's the Department of Justice. The AG is literally the top cop in the U.S. The Attorney General of the United States, who is pretty much the guy who can remove individuals, mind you. But yet, nothing. I asked that question. Nothing. What actually happens next? Because saying that yes, there's a lot of smoke and a lot of fire, but nobody's putting the fire out. That part makes no sense to me completely. Never makes any sense to me at all. But again, that's why I don't really. It's hard to take what the Department of Justice will do as far as inquiries and investigations go if they don't lead to reform and individuals who are not cutting it to be removed and bring in those that will. Because that's really what these communities want to see. They do want to see change. I don't ever want to see anybody lose a job. True. But if you are terrible at your job that affects others to a point to where loss of life can happen, I'm going to need you to go from the police chief all the way down to the police officer. Because again, that was Louisville. In Tennessee and Laverne, they had their own eyes wide shut issue. But what did they do? Everybody from the chief down to the intended individual, if you will, all got fired. The same thing can be done for Louisville, but you would think the Department of Justice would do it, but I digress. But moving right along, guys, keep in mind I did talk about Dictator DeSantis because, well, Dictator DeSantis and his administration is doubling down on the Don't Say Gay Law bill. They are actually adding more 3 bills to this law. One of those bills in question is basically regarding sexual orientation and gender identity instruction up to the 8th grade, which means that, again, with the Don't Say Gay Law, is just that you cannot talk about sexual orientation or gender identity from grades K, from all elementary grades. So from grades kindergarten up to 6th grade, you cannot talk about this or face felony prosecution, which a lot of teachers and students basically either left or fought for, because again, if you are a gay person in Florida and you work in the educational institution, you really cannot talk anything about yourself because that would violate the law. However, one bill they're saying is like, okay, this was great for grades K through 6. Let's expand this to the 8th grade. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when the group that says indoctrination is what they're doing to our kids is exactly the indoctrination they are doing now. Because the simple fact of the matter, guys, is just that they are literally wanting to control education. Not only are they wanting to control education, they're wanting to control sexual preferences. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. I will always sit there and say, you are allowed to be, do, or however you choose to identify yourself with. If you find it in kindergarten through 6th grade, cool. But at least talk about it. See, that's the problem with a lot of these people, and a lot of these people who are in positions to where they cry about education and then use whatever political things they can to find it, to control it, or much less enforce what they believe. See, this is why I say when there's a lack of cultural sensitivity, you get abundance of ignorant bigots. You get an abundance of them. You get those that sit there and say, well, I just think that if we introduce prayer back in schools and put Jesus back in schools, everything will be all right. Yeah, that's the problem with education these days. Not enough religion. Yeah, but these people believe it, and they're not the only ones. Moms for Liberty, and I'll give them credit. I'll give Moms for Liberty credit. Their little conservative, what used to be conservative mom group has grown and has influenced various school boards across the states. I'll give it to them. Well done. I did not think y'all had it in you. But that alone should be scary, because those groups of people, like I said, those bigots that I call them, those are the ones that want to shape education how they see fit. They want to reshape African American history. They want to reshape American history. They want to question and challenge books that are put out there by people of color, by those the LGBTQ plus community. They want to turn around and control those things and prevent them from reading it. Why? Because they simply believe that their way is better. That, they believe in freedom of speech, but they believe just we're doing this for you because you don't know any better. And that's always bugged me. That level of superior ignorance that they believe that they have it right, which again, look at our current culture now. Cultural insensitivity, that a certain group of the unseasoned ones out there, because I've said it once, I'll say it again, our landscape is changing, and that some of those who were on top of the dominant group are now seeing themselves lower and lower on the food chain, and they have to do something. They're trying to do something. Because even more so, guys, like I talked about Tennessee, again, with Tennessee passing the law, it's official. They passed a law about about banning drag shows where minors are present. That's the thing they stick on. But here's the thing that keep in mind where I talk about this, where Tennessee had passed a law that says restrict certain types of performances in public spaces or any place that children might see them. This was basically targeting drag shows. And again, there's nothing wrong with a drag show. I've been to a drag show. It's fun. And you will never find a incident where a minor, being a child, was harmed at a drag show. I mean, even Drag Time Story Hour, when I would love to take my kids to the library and actually, because number one, it challenges kids to read. Number two, it gets kids to a library, which I always recommend it should be done anyway. And number three, it teaches them to be okay with people who are different than them. You know, the one thing that you so-called conservatives / Christians talk about, love one another and accept everybody so much. Yeah, I'm talking about that part. But anyway, about the Tennessee law, right? This restriction, the restriction is that, and I'm quoting this directly. This restriction includes topless acts, strippers, or male or female impersonators who provide entertainment that appeals to prurient interest. But those that create the bill say that we need to protect children from over-sexualized content. Okay, protect children from over-sexualized content. And I use this as an example, and nobody stopped me. So if this bill goes into an effect, which it looks like it already has, because Governor Bill Lee signed it, does that mean that those that work at establishments like Twin Peaks or Hooters, wouldn't that mean that they violate this law as well? I mean, wouldn't that mean this law that carries a felony, that those same women, because of the outfits at these establishments and that there are minors present, wouldn't that mean that they're in violation of the law as well? I have said this multiple times. I have yet to come back there and say, well, no, that's not true. Really? Skimpy outfits showing certain areas, minors are present? Sounds like the very same law that was geared toward drag queens. Oh, but they're not doing it. They're not doing what the drag queens are doing. They're not performing or serving you in any capacity? See, that's why I say you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite in the show. You're the fact that you're being a hypocrite is showing in that. And I say this again, explain those who are proponents of this bill, because the simple fact of the matter is it goes right back to what's happening in Florida, to what's happening in other states, because simply put, they are trying to change the narrative. And if they change the narrative, they change the population. Why? Because that's superior ignorance. We know better than you, so we're doing this for your own good. And that's some bullshit. But the last story I got, guys, before we get to our Feel Good segment, again, when it comes to student loan debt, we already know that Joe Biden, is fulfilling, he's fulfilling to his promise. He didn't say he would eliminate all the student loan debt. He did not say he would. I will give him that. However, what I will say in this sense is that for the simple fact of the matter, he is trying to push at least $20,000 off. Now, we could argue this back and forth about, well, it's not enough. We know it's not enough, okay? We should be pushing for the full measure of it being wiped out. Anybody that argues that student loan debt shouldn't be wiped out is probably somebody who either got the loans wiped out or wants some type of reward because they feel like these people who took out the loans are being rewarded. Again, it's a beaten to death horse argument that I will not go into. Because the simple fact of the matter is student loan debt needs to be forgiven. Well, as you guys have followed this podcast, 6 states, including 2 individuals, have filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit is currently being listened to by the Supreme Court to see whether or not they will either take up the case or pass it down. That also being said, SoFi Bank also plans to sue Biden's student loan. Let me try it again. SoFi Bank is planning to sue Biden's student loan debt relief. Why? because the bank claims that its federal student loan refinancing business has suffered because borrowers have little incentive to refinance while payments and interest remain on hold. Yes, that is the reason that they're suing. That, again, with a lot of people, it's like, you've probably heard the term, well, why don't you refinance, make your payments lower. Yes, but you basically restart the whole payment process all over again. Now, SoFi, like some banks, we're in the business of refinancing, because if you refinance, that means you're basically resetting the clock, even though you might have lower payments, sure, but you're resetting the clock back on your loans. But since they filed a federal lawsuit on it, that they're asking a federal judge to overturn the latest extension of the payment pause, which means that, for all those who know, Biden did actually extend the payment pause again as the actual case is being heard by the Supreme Court. But SoFi Bank is saying that, well, our business has been hurt because of this. I'm trying to figure out, how is it, and maybe I'm lost. And for all those who are in the financial sector that may know more about this than I do, please let me know, because I'm quite confused. A business that doesn't do well gets to blame the government and then wants to sue to have the payment pause lifted to force those who may have loans with SoFi Bank to either pay them, begin their payments, or do their refinancing in order for the business to thrive. That's amazing. And it's so stupid. But only in America can a business in the business of student loans, again, which I say student loans is predatory lending anyway, because where else in America can an 18-year-old say, hey, I would love to borrow $40,000 to start my own business. Here's my 5-year plan. Here's my projections. Here's what I think I can do with the money and pay it back. And the bank will laugh him out of the premises. That very same bank will give an 18-year-old a $40,000 student loan with ridiculous interest and terms, and will do it in a heartbeat. Why? Because out of those two situations, one is a lifetime. The other one has a finite time limit. You can pretty much guess which one's the lifer on that one. Because let's be honest, for most student loan debt, that does stick with you. It is amazing the level of APR, the level of interest. I'm sorry, the APR rate, the APR interest rate, or the principality of it, because you have folks who have been paying on the same student loan for nearly a decade, and the principal hasn't changed. Think about that. You've been paying on the same student loan for 10 years, and the principal remains the same. That is the greatest form of predatory lending. It's something I wish Biden would have tackled when they had the slim majority, but again, I digress. But going back to SoFi Bank, they are basically saying we would like the pause lifted because our business is suffering, which goes to show you, which I hope that gets thrown out. But again, we have to wait to see what happens with that. But that just goes to show you that America literally runs on debt. It runs on debt. It runs on the fact that, there has to be a certain amount of borrowers constantly paying for these corporations to keep rich. This is why I was hoping that Biden would turn around and say, well, we're just going to completely forgive student loan debt. Instead of doing 20,000, 10,000, let's just wipe the whole thing out. We have shown time and time again that yes, we can forgive the entire student loan debt, and we have the space for it. Because you know how you can have the space for it? Tax the rich. Tax the churches, actually, at this point. I mean, we just found out that a Mormon church in Utah had $1 billion portfolio. A literal 501c nonprofit organization has $1 billion portfolio. And all they did was pay a fine. So yes, we can tax the corporations. We can tax the rich. We can go back to a corporate tax rate of almost 40%. We can go back to taxing the rich. We can go back to instituting a windfall profits taxing these oil companies that have made buku bucks at a time where people are wondering if they should pay for rent or pay for gas. If we did all these things, of course we could pay student loan debt. No problem. I mean, we paid for 2 wars on a credit card. What's student loan debt? Because again, it would free up so many Americans to actually live progressive lives. I will always say that. It will free up Americans because number one, student loan debt does not look good on your credit report. And let's be honest, for all those who are over the age of 25 and up, know how important credit is, because those 3 numbers can alter the way you live your life. From the car you drive, the loans you get, the jobs you get. Because a lot of people don't understand, yes, a lot of jobs look at your credit. And if your credit ain't right, you're screwed. Or, they'll just move on. So yes, we should be concerned. At the same time, it's amazing that as we're trying to get relief, companies are out there trying to get us back to paying again. Why? Because predatory lending of student loans is a profitable business. That's why a lot of banks will give out student loans faster than they will give you a business loan. That's all I'm saying. But we're going to move on to our Feel Good News segment, guys, because usually how the Frack we got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, and sometimes we do faith and humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday, although it's almost Thursday, which is Friday, which is basically Friday Eve. But we let you guys out on a good note, good vibrations. And this story, I cannot stress this enough about stories like this. Stories about African-American heroes should literally be made into movies, especially this man's story.
At the White House today, President Biden awarded the Medal of Honor to a Black Vietnam vet who saved 3 injured soldiers during a fierce battle, even as he suffered multiple wounds. It is a recognition that took nearly 58 years to happen, righting what some see as a shameful wrong.
Paris Davis has been waiting more than a half a century for his country to honor his heroism. Davis crawled through blood, mud, pain, and withering enemy fire, carrying his wounded comrades on his back to reach this moment at the White House. That it took a battle against bureaucracy for him to receive the Medal of Honor leaves many who have heard his story dumbfounded.
It's been a long time coming. What's the moment feel like?
Everything is good. And I feel very comfortable, and it took a while. It took a long while, but it's here. And I'm really proud to be an American.
It was early summer 1965, just months after Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama. Then Captain Davis, a Green Beret, on his second tour in Vietnam, at war for his country, while back at home, in some ways, his country was fighting him. When one day his commanding officer asked him to be in charge.
He made a point of saying, this is an all-white team. As a Black man, do you think you could handle it? I said, no problem right here, sir. There's a couple of guys from Alabama, one from Mississippi. Is that going to be a problem? I said, I don't think so, sir.
He and 3 other Special Forces soldiers were tasked with training South Vietnamese troops. Then, one June night, he led them into a ferocious battle. Specialist Robert Brown was wounded and pinned down. Davis crawled out to get him, suffering a shrapnel wound from a grenade.
It knocked out some of my teeth and
trigger finger.
And my trigger finger
was shot off.
Yeah. It hurt, but it didn't hurt that much that I was stopped. And once I got out there, Brown said to me, sir, am I going to die? And I remember saying to him, not before me.
After rescuing Brown, Davis crawled back onto the battlefield to help Master Sergeant Billy Waugh, who was pinned down, his leg in tatters.
Had him to take his one good leg and wrap it around my body. And it was mud and blood. I mean, it was just a hell of a place to be.
Davis's heroism led his commander to nominate him for the Medal of Honor, but the Army lost the paperwork. He was renominated 4 years later, and again, it vanished. Some blame racism. Ron Dice fought with Davis, one of many who advocated for this honor.
Is there any really plausible explanation as to how this could have happened?
I don't have one.
You think it was race?
I do. I absolutely do.
Did you fear that it would never happen?
I forgot that it could happen.
Today at the White House, an honor delayed, but so richly deserved.
Colonel Paris Davis, an American.
Right. American hero indeed. And like I said, we have, and of course, even though Black History Month, albeit the shortest month, is over, it's still Black 365 wherever we go. But yeah, think of that. I mean, there are many more stories just like that individual that, you know what, Hollywood, you want original movies? There you go. I'm just saying, I would watch that. But I definitely want to make sure that Colonel U.S. Army Colonel Paris Davis definitely gets his flowers, just because of what he's done. But definitely thank him for his service. But that being said, guys, that's gonna do it for this podcast. So I do thank everybody that watched, that liked. I know I'm late. I apologize. Life, man. But still, thank you for rocking with me. Before I do get out of here, guys, I do wanted to again do some shameless plugging. Shout out to my friend, my buddy, my brother in arms, Big VZA Dot. You can definitely find him, Big VZA Dot, on all socials, especially with his music podcast page jumping off on YouTube, where he does produce beats and sells beats. If you are interested, definitely check him on that. Of course, myself, guys, Black Fox 447 on all socials. You can find me almost everywhere. You can follow me. I usually post reviews of everything that I watch, that I read, that I play, and also, gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. The link at the bottom that you're seeing there scroll, let me make this a wee bit bigger. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, it will take you to my link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, off of this podcast. Definitely check them all out. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the show. Did you like it? Didn't like it? I want to know. I'm very good on conversations, even though I completely just screw up that line. Also, guys, for 2023, as I'm wrapping this up, we got to do better. Like I said, we're all on different tracks. We all have different seasons where we either come up and we come up and accomplish a goal. Here's the one thing I will say. If someone reaches their goal before you, freaking congratulate them. Don't be salty. Don't be hateful. Because, again, we all run different tracks. So, therefore, there's going to be people that are going to make it before you, and there's going to be some people that might take a little while longer to get there. But celebrate the wins, even if they are not yours. We need to get into that mindset of unity, of really working with them, especially with my melanated brethren and sisters. We need to do this. We need to come together. We need to unify. We need to do all these things. We should be more congratulatory and celebratory and less hateful. We need to actually give a hand up instead of a hand down. Instead of actually, worried about whether or not there's a door open, knock the hinges off of it, because there's plenty of room to eat at this table. As a friend of mine once said, you just have to be able to make your own plate. That's it. That's all it is. Also, guys, with COVID-19 still being out there, the transmission vectors are getting lower. If you are traveling, you're going to be in an area with a lot of high traffic, please wear a mask. Also, at the same time, if you are feeling sick, please stay home, because, again, we do have a lot of traffic, even though it is coming down. If you protect yourself, you protect others, and that's how we're going to get this pandemic. So, the last thing to say about How the Frack Got Here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We're progressive. We try to move forward by, making those decisions that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black 4-star military general, making sure that our Vietnam vets receive the honor that they so richly deserve. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Peace.